The Book of Tolan, a trilogy of 3 novels. Volume 1, Banking, Beer, and Robert the Bruce. Narrated by the author, tiwade.
Audio engineering by Aaron Morris at Straight Cougar Studios, North Carolina.
And now, an important message.
Warning! Parental guidance. Adult situations. Not to be listened to by children under 18 years old.
Oh, by the way, you listening to this, there are maps, family trees, and chapter headings inside the cover at the front of the audiobook. Please pull it out and study it so you don't get lost in the middle of this never-ending, extremely long, that's taken 9 months to make audiobook. Wanting ramblings from the author. Our beloved round ball called Earth has been around since heaven knows when. We, as the Bible tells us, originated from Adam and Eve. Everything would have been just dandy for us if Eve did not like apples and wasn't able to talk to snakes. Well, we humans have been naughty and bad since we existed, and have had to be pulled out of the crapper by the one who originally made us. Not once, but many times since the Garden of Eden and Eve's eating those apples. God was kind and loving enough to save humanity from total destruction through Noah, when he destroyed much of what he had made himself by flooding the earth of sin all those years ago. His mathematics in building Earth are so precise that the figures go into 30-odd decimal places to give us the beauty of this livable planet. Blue is my favorite color, maybe God's as well, as he painted it right across the sky. Great job. He made clouds so clean and white that they cleanse the sky with beautiful colors that can never be boring. God uses shapes, colors, and densities that only a perfectionist could think up. The vivid greens and browns of the earth blend in with any sky color, and the differences in sense in air, ground, and water could never bore anyone during our short lives on earth. Yet God made us humans, the total opposite of what Monet would call a perfect work. Bad, naughty, smelly, horrible 2-legged beings that eat apples, make a lot of noise, and certainly do not, on earth, do what we are supposed to do. Could God have been a closet masochist and have invented us to give himself a hard time? Or are we a never-ending soap opera that keeps him from getting bored? Living for eternity must be tough. The other possible view. Then there is the other view. Some little critter that used to look like a bacteria walked out of the sea and ended up becoming and looking like us. Somehow our evolution went from living and breathing underwater and having fins to then having 4 feet, breathing and needing to stand up on our 2 hind legs to reach those apples. Now, as the major occupants and pollutants of our home, we have university degrees, drive cars, consider ourselves to be civilized, and do our level best to mess up our little round ball in the middle of nowhere. We pollute it, make holes in it, use all of its resources as if there is no tomorrow, invent trash that will outlive us by 1,000 years, and that is our legacy. And generally we do our utmost to mess up God's original 30-odd decimal places. Yes, we all do it in some way, and we don't even use 17% of our brain power. Even those of us who are extra very intelligent, they say. They say is always the way that the English describe it, is when somebody else said it first. We are civilized now. Great. How come we still eat apples and act worse than most of the uncivilized animals out there? God also killed off most of those guys that didn't eat or even like apples, keeping 2 for breeding purposes. People who, in my view, did not do things wrong like us and lived a simple existence. Evolution, commonly called Mother Nature, on the other hand, got rid of, or shall I say gets rid of, anyone she doesn't like. Nice mom. Everything except us, that is, so the assumption is that someone out there must like us. Anyway, getting back to the 2-legged apple eater, being civilized. It has come to my attention that most apples available on this earth are in supermarkets. Now, it's taken about 2,000 years since the Great Flood, or about 1 billion years for us pesky little bacteria sea critters to get civilized. Yet, if all of those supermarkets around the world closed their doors all at once and never opened up again, how long would it take us, civilized humans, to get very uncivilized again? How about 4 days before someone comes to your house and wants to take possession of the apples you have left. Get my drift? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that something out there is not right. Here we are after 1 billion years or so, or 2,000 years after Noah, of bettering, educating, and teaching ourselves. And where have we actually gone? And how much have we achieved? As you will notice by reading the Book of Tolan and its first 3 novels, Banking, Beer and Robert the Bruce, Easy Come, Easy Go, and It Could Happen, life is an entanglement of trying to be civilized, yet still being ourselves. Trying hard to be good and better our ancestors' way of living. Trying to get this winding road of life to go in a straight line, yet never actually learning from our mistakes, generation after generation. Am I all that different, then, to you, I ask? Of course I am. This is my life, and the life of my family and family tree. I bet your ancestors lived totally different lives than mine, but also are exactly the same as my family. Has your family's past been as interesting as my family's? If it has, and you feel like you bond with this piece of literature, read on and laugh and chuckle at the curves and corners of this long and winding story. If you think I have totally lost it, fine. But get alive and get real, because often we humans believe that we are so civilized that it blinds us to the fact that life could end at any time it wants. In the beginning, there was nothing. Now we have civilization, and we are on course for a pretty big shock. Do we actually have anything? Will someone remember us 100 years from now? How about 1,000? How about 100,000 years from today? Are we the apple of God's eye, or the new dinosaur about to happen? Read on and find out. Special note from the author. All ramblings by the author are from the author's brain cells only and cannot be transmitted to any other brain cells without prior permission of the brain cells of the author, as well as a few brain cells of members of the FBI, IRS, and any other government department that wants to get involved with brain cell distribution. Sorry, but this is the work of an average human. Total fiction, and to make sure that you believe me, I have made up false and totally uninteresting names to protect those many unfortunate humans and animals mentioned here who are already dead, still living, or not even born yet. This is for the legitimate purpose of not giving their names to the CIA, MI5, the Baseball Hall of Fame, Osama what's-his-name, the Chinese far-right party, Noah, the author of The Life of Brian, the IRS, INS, Democratic Party, and any politicians who want to use this literature for political gain. I'm also totally fictional. I'm not even on this microphone. That means that the author's name doesn't actually exist. So anybody mentioned in this book who doesn't actually exist cannot sue me, shoot me, beat me up, crap all over me, or find me in order to do any of the above. If you don't read Volume 1 carefully and laughed often, this book might self-destruct 30 seconds after being put to use as a doorstop. Introduction. The beginning of the Tolan Family manuscripts. I sit gazing out of the study window, entranced by the seagulls diving and swooping over the wind-swept sea. The beach is just over the brow, across the deserted road, and can be seen from this third-story window during the day. Even through the double-pane glass window I can hear the thunderous crashing of the waves. The wind is strong, hitting the heavy bricks on the side wall of the house with screaming anger. My name is Ian Fleming, and I'm in my family's old house on the beach road called Henrietta Street in Girvan, Ayrshire. Girvan is a remote, small and unsheltered fishing village on the west coast of Scotland. I sit next to a glowing coal fire in this large, old, but comfortably furnished study with its fair share of ghosts. The light of day begins to slowly fade outside. My immediate family and I currently live a world away in the trendy ski town of Park City, Utah, where we have made our home for the past 3 years. Lying on a specially made desk in front of me on this cold and dreary start to a winter's evening is a large book, most probably the largest book I've ever seen. The book, with its deep brown, rich leather cover, is a diary that my ancestors have painstakingly kept up to date for the past 200 years. I open the cover. The weird, semi-legible writing on the first page is scribbled in very bad English, and the page begins in the year 1819 with the story of my first recorded ancestor, Murphy Patrick Tolan. After years of deliberation, Murphy did finally pluck up enough courage to write his life story. A note with his name on it is still pasted on the inside of the cover. It reads, "To Murphy Patrick Tolan, born December 28, 1779, this manuscript has been given to you to write the history of your life, as well as each generation spawned by you. Once you get old, pass it on to your eldest son. If there is no son, pass it on to your eldest daughter, and she shall continue their stories until the completed book reaches me. Signed, Tishan Tolan the Last." Murphy had noticed the book by accident one day sitting on top of a large table as he searched for something in the attic above the pub he now owned and ran. He had never seen the large brown book before and was totally surprised, wondering how it had got into his attic in the first place. He had found the book in 1817, but was too scared to touch it for the first 2 years he knew it was up there. Murphy read the yellow post-it note often, and slowly found the courage to open the book and make his first mark, dipping his quill pen into the ink pot beside him. It is now dark outside, and again I stare at the book. At 2 feet wide by 2.5 feet long, the manuscript is impressive in size, and at exactly 3 pounds, it is much lighter than the mind would expect it to weigh. When closed, the large book is 12 inches thick, with 1,000 white pages of a type of paper that even in 1999 I have never seen before. This paper is crisp, thick, and very strong. The book is very dominating, and I understand Murphy's hesitance to start what the note ordered him to do. Even after 100 years of being kept in a locked, custom-made writing desk of heavy teak wood, the white pages are still in perfect condition. Anyone looking at the leather-bound book can immediately see that it was certainly not from Murphy's time, or even ours, and the sudden and mysterious arrival of the book in his old house remains a mystery even to this very day. The writing is often hard to read, and the words are spelled differently from our current and modern era. Corrections have been made to the wording over the centuries by later members of the family, giving answers to words that wouldn't have been understandable in today's modern English language. Even the original changes have had changes made to them over time. A later family ancestor, Robbie Tolan, made the writing desk the manuscript sits on 70 years after Murphy's death in 1829. He had designed and hand-built the solid teak roll-top desk to be a perfect fit for the large book, with a heavy roll-top panel that slid upwards towards the rear of the desk. When opened, the manuscript covered the desk in precise measurements. Screwed onto the side of the writing desk was a small gold plate. It had this inscription: "Built by these hands of Robbie Tolan. Finished in the month of December 1899. About 100 or so of the first scribble pages are hard to read, even with the corrections added, but after spending many hours of writing notes on a legal pad next to me, I have decoded most of the writings of the first 3 writers. With these hundreds of hours studying the manuscript, my notes finally tell the story, and you are one of the first to ever understand the history of my ancestors. I hear the weather outside getting worse. The manuscript conjures up wispy tales of the past that spring to life in the shadows of the study, like ghosts returning to make sure that the writings are continued. It is sometimes eerie in this room, high on the 3rd floor of the house. The wind is picking up outside, rattling the old windows and doors, and the large hearth is still alive with the solid coal fire glowing in the grate. Nobody has lived in this house since my great-aunt Ella, who died over 20 years ago. My great-grandfather, Robbie Tolan, transported the manuscript to Henrietta Street and hand-built the desk in the study in 1899. Before this, the writings had been secured a few streets away in the house where his father, Robert Tolan, was born in 1859. That house was destroyed in a fire in 1901. My mother's youngest brother, Uncle Buddy, retired from the bank in London after Aunt Ella's death and returned to Girvan to play golf. His job was to keep our proud ancestral home in perfect condition. Funny, but my grandfather's 3 sons, Robert, Robbie, and Buddy, never have shown any interest in opening the manuscript and left it to my mother, Betty, to add her life. Really weird how the manuscript seems to pull certain members of the family and not others. My grandfather, James Fleming, and grandmother, Maud Fleming, nee Hawkins, on the offer of Robbie Tolan, Started the English family writings in the manuscript. Robbie was my great-grandfather on my mother's side. This, I think, is the reason there are fewer words written in the English chapters. All I know is that I must continue adding my words to the book. My brother and sister do not even have the time of day to discuss the manuscript. My Uncle Buddy and I frequent the old pub, MacTools, most nights when I'm in town, and he leaves me alone during the day to bring my side of the manuscript up to date. It is uncomfortable to actually write in such a large book, yet both sides of all the white pages that have been written on are filled to capacity with many different styles of handwriting. Ink does not smudge or run. The paper does not tear, and ink mistakes can be easily erased with a pencil eraser, if one is quick. We have a family oath never to allow any other person to see this strange book and feel its magical power, other than the immediate family members seemingly chosen by the book to keep it updated. I hope to give this honor to my firstborn son, Alexander Michael, when I get too old to continue. He is currently only 4 months old and is downstairs in the guest room being put to bed with his 4-year-old sister Tish and Anne by my wife Jennifer. Since you are here with me in this warm study tonight, I will open the manuscript and read to you from my notes, those from the beginning of Murphy's scribbles. I may be called by Uncle Buddy to visit the pub with him in an hour or so, around 8, so please excuse me when he arrives.